A very good evening once again from the eNCA Money Desk. I'm Aropwa Madzena, and when you're thinking about artificial intelligence, our minds easily go to robots initially, taking over basic tasks and then ultimately the world. But that's not the case, and according to the head of portfolio solutions at Satrix, Nico Katzke. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Nico. Let's look at the financial sector. How can AI exactly simplify the system and how we operate within it?
Thanks for and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you on such an incredibly weighty topic as AI in finance. I have to caveat by saying I have ChatGPT open next to me to help me answer the questions in real time. So let's hope it doesn't let me down. First, maybe for those not deeply involved with how open access to artificial intelligence, or let's call it open AI, works, through the use of, for example, ChatGPT, it's a phenomenal technology. It's built on natural language processing algorithms that convey surprisingly relevant human-like answers to basically any question that you pose to it. I always say you can think of it as version 2.0 of Google, where instead of being directed to a website to answer your question, it in fact summarizes various websites in a matter of seconds into a coherent and a structured answer. So it's almost as if you have an expert on speed dial, just waiting for your every question. But you have to be careful that it works not on understanding your question and appreciating your answer. And I know this can be confusing because the answers are so human-like, but rather it works on stringing together sentences based on the highest probability of it being relevant to the question you ask it. And this is probably the reason why OpenAI seems almost all-knowing, right? It's because it's been trained on humanity's combined contributions to the internet. Now, think of all your public posts and queries and questions and even your written documents and texts that is on the internet. Now, from this enormous information set, these algorithms are trained to provide answers to even simple questions like, what is a company's price earnings ratio? What is a balance sheet? Even asking it, how do you make an apple pie? But it can also provide answers to much deeper questions, questions that require more nuance that the questioner does not maybe know to actually pose to the OpenAI algorithm.
That's very interesting that you say that. The point that you make that, it just collects a whole bunch of information and puts together an ideal answer that would seem human-like, but it's not in fact. So when we put that into the investment space, how do we then trust the investment, would I call it advice or information that you'd be getting from AI and the direction that it would probably be taking you in when it looks at investment opportunities, whether it be offshore or anywhere else?
That's a fantastic question. That is the question we need to ask, right? So what is the impact of OpenAI on investing? And this actually might be comparatively muted early on because, even though the technology is incredibly powerful, you need to be able to ask the right questions to get an appropriate answer. So asking the question of whether, for example, and we get asked this a lot, can you use ChatGPT to provide you with investment advice? Now, this honestly depends on how you phrase the question, right? Think of it as asking Google what the best way is to break your car's window. Now, it will provide you an answer to do this, but a better question might actually just be, what is the number of my nearest locksmith? Now, for me, this is where the potential problem in applying ChatGPT or OpenAI to investments lie. The technology is an incredible tool for efficiently summarizing vast available information. It's not supposed to deal with the questions that require more nuance or a more personal connection with the questioner. This is where the value of an advisor, for example, is very clear. As they can better understand what your specific needs are, how to ask the right questions, understanding your own risk preferences, what the tax implications are that might be relevant to you. And this is, of course, not something that ChatGPT or OpenAI can be expected to have any knowledge of. And where guidance, for example, from an advisor in terms of questions like this might remain irreplaceable in the near future. So certainly it will change the investment landscape. In fact, it will likely change all facets of our lives. But we must just, carefully understand what this technology enables and certainly what it does not enable.
Yeah, so indeed then it's not a silver bullet to perfect investments for great returns in the long run, where because we're going to still need that active management of a portfolio that will be needed still. So I guess for every investment analyst or portfolio manager watching this evening, they won't be losing their jobs just yet, Nico.
Well, in finance, we have the concept of market efficiency, which simply means that prices at which companies trade at, for example, the JSE, is a good reflection of the information that is available to the market. In other words, prices are fair if markets are efficient. Now, in a world where AI, let's say, matures and it becomes a very widely used tool for collating information, I can easily foresee a world where how this would make publicly traded prices for companies even more and more efficient than it currently is. Sort of optimally reflecting available information in the market. Now, this would mean that prices that companies trade at can be even closer to regarded as fair, given the information available. Now, if that is the scenario, if that is the world we are transitioning in, then actually, contrary to what you just mentioned, actively buying and selling companies in order to find unique opportunities that the market has not realized will actually become harder to do. And so it will, this technology will probably likely serve to make active managers, in fact, a bit less competitive relative to, for example, simple index tracker fund, like the Satrix Top 40 index, which simply provides you with the market returns. Now, simply put, while there will, of course, be times where the market either processes available information wrongly, or there's just wrong information available in the market, or, there's obvious opportunities that might not be so obvious, that those will still exist. But my point is that finding these pockets of opportunities consistently in order to justify a high management fee will probably be very hard to do in the future. So from our perspective at Satrix, a more efficient use of available information should bode well for index trackers, and it should also bode well for good active managers and very able advisors to use this as a tool to make them even better at doing what they're doing and bringing value to clients.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose with that, are there any other, because you've just spoken about the advantages for the client as well as for the portfolio manager or whoever it may be, but are there any disadvantages that we should look out for when considering using OpenAI to look at investment opportunities, of course, with the assistance of a management firm or person or individual?
Yeah, so it's a great question again. I think OpenAI is such a fantastic tool to broaden investors' understanding of financial markets. And to the extent that knowledge improves investment outcome, it will be beneficial in the hands of lay investors, of the man on the street that's able to better make sense of financial statements and what opportunities might be out there. It will likely be a great demystifying tool, right? So, but I always caveat this by saying, and people must understand this, in the same way that access to Google has not made us all astrophysics experts. So access to information does not equate to mastery. And so if we have the requisite respect for the technology in saying it's a great tool, it will help me broaden my knowledge and broaden my my frame of reference, I should not expect it to replace a good advisor or for me to become my own active manager, so to speak. So still seeking professional advice and trusting experts to actually make sense of all the information. Like I mentioned, all the information of astrophysics textbooks are out there, but please don't call me if you want deeper understanding of how the universe works. So, we need to keep that in mind as well, I think, how it applies to investing.
Thank you very much, Nico. What I can tell you is that your ChatGPT definitely came through for you this evening. A very, very insightful conversation with you this evening. That is the head of portfolio solutions at Satrix, Nico Katzke, who just opened up the conversation around using AI as an investment tool, obviously not letting go of those who would be managing your funds under general circumstances.